Good evening, primetime partiers. It's primetime party time. Welcome back to a new kind of episode, but still with your hosts that love all things media and entertainment. Live on the air at 9 p.m. at ptptshow.com and on your time, wherever you stream podcasts. Tonight, we're kind of going to do a little bit of a talk of the town type of deal, where you're going to go over some Halloween events of the past weekend, talk about any kind of food scenes we've come across that we really think is part of our SoCal forecast of the primetime community. Like, what's prime time off the screen for us? So howdy, Daniel. How are you doing?
In October? Yeah, it's probably going to be something spooky, isn't it?
Oh,
Hey,
it's
Tracy.
spooky.
I'm excited to hear about it. This is interesting. Did you want to get into it, or is there any business you want to take care of first?
I don't know. I feel pretty good about what we've covered with the audience, so we can get into our talk of the town.
What do you got?
So, I did leave my town this past weekend, and since we are in October and we are going to roll out a few episodes of spooky season related shows, we figured let's slowly, transition into all those spooky shows and talk about some spooky things you can do for fun around here. So I went up to, I think it's technically Eagle Rock, but kind of where it crosses over with Highland Park. So it's, in that northeast LA type deal. And I went with friends who had a relative working in what we call the House of Spirits. It's a haunted house. It is an adult haunted house. That should be noted. With your ticket, you get 4 kind of small cocktails, and they're actually pretty fun. One of my favorites was a Earl Grey infused vodka with they put some sort of blood orange, I think, in there too, and in lemonade, and it was really good. But yeah, they kind of like it. It's a bit like time period it's sort of like around the Romanovs ish, but a lot of people also dressed for flapper era. It was more just B vintage, and that whole York Boulevard area was very vintagey. There's vintage cars and kind of a street fair and a jazz band playing outside of beyond where this haunted house was, which was kind of the end of the way, but you could kind of do this fun other activities beforehand. And yeah, they had it's this kind of turn, I don't know if turn of the century is the right word. It's they kind of had a lot of things going on. So it's like a folk tale rules this haunted house that loosely is based on Rasputin and the Romanov families. And so it was a little bit of a haunted house meets escape room. You had to go to these different rooms. And so the part where they kind of blended is they said they used these demon creatures from Scandinavian folklore. So I'm like, okay, we're drawing from a lot of resources here. So bear with. This isn't a fully realistic, but based on a few real stories braided together. But yeah, it was quite so I'd say we all have different levels on the spookometer. Friend Kayla is the top. She even did some areas by herself because I backed out, and so did my friend Heather.
Wow.
Oh yeah, so that means she is crushing it. That being said, the reason you back out is because if they can just sniff out of you that you are vulnerable, you're going down. And the thing is, what's even worse is I was wearing a mask, so you can really only see the eyes. The eyes are the windows to fear, because I got jump scared by every single person. They would just stare at me, wait, and I'd think, oh yeah, it's gonna pass, and then they would do it, and I'm I'd go for it, and they're just yeah. They knew I was oh, she's a sure thing. She's totally gonna scream. I'm I am weak of spooky spirit. I like going to these things, but It is good I went in the daytime. I think I would have been, but it was funny because you get these like tokens, and they'd usually be like a fake finger. I think one of the things like I was like, I kind of felt like it was a real bait fish, and I was like, that's kind of gross, but it might have been fake. It all starts to get a little weird when the costumes are like, nah. So like it started off with like a guy, like you went up, you enter a room where there's like a woman. I'll back it up. So you enter this room where there's like chandeliers, very like vintagey decorations. There's like a burlesque dancer, and then there's like a band of people dressed kind of like uh, elaborate princess like dresses, but obviously they're supposed to be like ghouls. And and then some people are kind of in like dungeony wear. So definitely veers into sexy Halloween as well. Um and we'll get to that towards the end as well.
Okay.
But it gets weird. But there was a woman singing like she'd kind of make chamber music covers of like a lot of indie songs, and but they would also all kind of fall into minor keys so that they sounded spooky. So like we're saying like Creep by Radiohead, and like there's definitely some Smashing Pumpkins in there, and then there's some like Florence and the Machine, like anything that you could kind of like stretch so it sounded a little bit like both spooky but also kind of fun. And she had a really great voice. So there's that. Yeah, all of the performers were really good and makes sense. Like you're in LA, so you're like, okay. Yeah, the performances are gonna be good. These people are trying to get jobs. so so like that part was nice. And then like you do go to each room to solve the mystery of like what happened in this house, like because it's this like fake tale of like a doctor and some like children and some like demon, and they're all kind of battling, but then there's like other demons that are helping the children fight the bad guys. It seemed it was a little bit like, okay, there's a lot of we're doing all the horror things at the same time. We got like demons, we got like scary doctors, we got like, creepy children. We got them all. You got them all. Come here. So yeah, so you'd go into these rooms. The first thing you get is like a fake like finger, and you have to hand it to the person in the creepy costume. The first one was like a bunch of like plastic babies all stitched together as a costume. So you're like, okay, we're getting weird. This is a bit odd. A bunch of, you know, the not arranged correctly baby doll body parts just all in one person. You're kind of like the yo gabba gabba creature from hell is right here. So you had that. And then, I was like, thank you, zombie gingerbread man. Here's my token. And then you move on to the next room. Next one was like kind of like a skeleton icky. Like each time the person in there was like, oh, these costumes are getting more expensive. They're getting more better. They're getting more scary. So that one, then you gave another. You would basically have to solve a riddle in the room, and then you get a token to give to the monster, and then you would go into the next room. And so we did 3 upstairs, and we were like, okay, that was a little spooky. We're good. And then you'd watch like the show. There'd be like a little dance show that's kind of like also telling a story of the house. So there'd be a burlesque dancer that does kind of scenes of things, and you're supposed to kind of like understand what's going on from there. And then you do another side of the house. This is where things get up a notch. So then we went and did the other level of creatures, and each one got much worse. We started out with some guy, it's like, definitely had some sort of like centaurish type head, but then like very weird, like silicone breasts, and then just like, I know, and then like some armor. It was all very odd. And then like this person made us do the token, and we kind of moved on. And then we got to the second one that was another kind of like zombie like guy. And this is the person who's really like, he could see that. And hot tip for people who go to haunted houses, you should probably not go in order of least to most scared because they expect it. You should switch it up because we did that. I He asked me to give him the token because he could tell that I was being a weenie. So I did. And then, and usually you only had to do it from one group. And then they asked my friend Heather, who was like hiding behind me, like, no, I want you. And they threw her in another room. And then we were like, where did she go?
You just took someone from your group.
Yeah. And I was getting scared because I was like, I had read the stories that like we were kind of trying to take out. And I was really starting to get concerned of like, we're in like an adult haunted house, which means like, you know, they kind of could do more to you. And I'm now afraid that they'll be like, you have to figure out the riddle to like get your friend out of haunted house jail or
Were you
something.
given all 4 miniature cocktails by this point, or do those come later?
No, no. So
Oh.
this is what occurred. So she actually was in the room with the monster by herself. And then she was like, oh no, I know the way out of here. So she just straight up dipped. She went down the stairs and knew she would end up in the regular ballroom. So she's like, I'm not doing this. But then she was concerned, like, I wonder if they will keep my friends because I didn't do whatever I was supposed to do in there. And really, they just kicked her out before they started to do more scary stuff. So then they were kind of like, oh, we had to do another thing. And I forgot to mention in a prior room, and I have a roast of some people I was with. One of the prior rooms, they made you do a thing like share an embarrassing story in order to leave. And this group was like, oh, I have no secrets. Because they're like, you need to share a secret. I was like, you have a low level secret. Let's not pretend like you don't have some sort of embarrassing story from middle school that you can't just offhand to this stranger in the lizard monster costume. And you're just like, I have no secrets. I'm an open book. I'm like, bullshit. Just like, say something. And we had to cover them. And I was just like, oh, no. Like, first of all, my entire life is embarrassing. So screw you. But second of all, I was like, ugh, you have a moment. You did something. You're not, I even looked at it, really? You don't really strike me as your entire life has been graceful. BT dubs. So there's that. But then, yeah, so then Heather ran out of that room. We were kind of like, oh, this might have ended poorly. But then by the time we got down there, we found her at the bottom. We were like, oh, that's good. They just kind of kicked you out before they shook it up a notch. And then at that point, she's like, Tracy, because they gave you like small, like probably like just larger than a shot class cocktails. She's like, outside, you could go buy a full sized drink. She's like, I think I need a drink. So we were like, we're gonna like have a drink. And we almost went to this like maze, but then we realized it was inside and pitch black. And we were like, Kayla, we found a nice group of other ladies. We are like, you're gonna adopt our friend because none shall pass. We can't do this. We didn't do either of the basements. So my level of spooky is similar to my level of spice in some cuisines. We're going 3 out of 10. It was not some places I've burrito salsa. I can do a 7 out of 10. I can rank it up, but other foods we're still low. We're still building that tolerance. And similarly for haunted houses. But the interesting thing is you can do this whole mystery or you could not. And eventually, like Kayla did a few other things where you have to like find a doctor and talk to him and then go down and talk to a demon. The weird part that we really didn't read about was kind of the sexy Halloween aspect and also the just kind of like interesting one. So there's obviously the burlesque dancing, which is a bit like sexy dancing. And that was all good and fine. And then they have this like ritual like act of killing the bad guy at they do it I think twice during the experience so that if you come at the beginning or towards the end you see it. And they definitely do take a dude and they make an announcement or like there's no recording during the ceremony. And you're kind of like, okay, like no phones are allowed to be out. You're like, I'm curious. And yeah, definitely the bad guy's this dude. The dude is definitely fully nude throughout the ceremony. And there's no thing wrong with nudity, was very unnecessary. Like no part of it was like
It's
required.
not nudity for this story in this live action like haunted house.
It didn't match any of the storylines of like why he would be naked, except for to just make it more creepy, I guess,
Uh-huh.
to be like the children stripped him naked and then killed him. Because then each of them like fake stab him or something. And then and it's also like, Seinfeld has the bit about good and bad nudity. And they do like put him in a lot of like weird, like jutting poses that I was like, this is not like, this is why the nudity is unnecessary. Like, there's no reason to have him be in this like kind of like, you know, leapfrog like pose or like tabletop poses, like things where I'm like, this is not anyone's good angle. It's no shame to anyone. It's more just like these are like the things where you're like some shorts wouldn't be bad. Like mm, it wouldn't change the experience. it,
Okay.
it would be the same feeling. They eventually put one of those like goat kind of like demony. I think it's like a Beelzebub like mask on him, and then they do more stabby stab. It all really does go like I feel like you could be in pants. Like this would be the same. You could actually have a whole outfit on, and it would not change the vibe of this like you getting stabby stabbed. Unless like there's some part of the story where like they're like in order to break the curse, he had to be naked. But it feels like that wasn't the case. So there's that. So I would still recommend people to go. It was a great time. It was fun. Dancing's really good, singing's really good. Like, and it is very well put together. Like, I haven't been to a haunted house in years. I only went to neighborhood haunted houses. I did not, like the ones that somebody's family would put up, which when I say now, I'm like, I do not feel like the children of this generation would be allowed to do this. Like, yeah, let's just like go to stranger's house in the neighborhood. They'll like chase us around with chainsaws
Yep.
and it's
That's my
totally
experience
fine.
too. Yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad we all got that growing up.
Which, by the way, I did do that where I went through, similar to this experience, I went through the whole haunted house of a neighborhood haunted house. And then I got to the Charlie the Chainsaw level, and I was like, I'm not doing this. And I ran backwards out of the house. And that was a mistake because then two of the people who were there were dressed up like ninja warriors or something, and they just took their little like katanas and they were chasing me out of the house. It became like part of the haunted house was like, oh, what did she do? She got chased out.
You
The
might have just stumbled across ninjas coincidentally on Halloween.
I know. It was just like, no, what she did is she wimped out. It's like this is not a new element of the house. So that happened. And at this one, we just like asked the little creature in front of one of them, like, how on a scale of the upstairs, like how bad is this one? And they're like, we aren't allowed upstairs. I'm like, this is good enough for me. I'm not gonna do this. And yeah, like I do wonder if I mean, especially after the pandemic, it would be hard to do a neighborhood haunted house. But like, yeah, that was like a big thing in our childhood. It's like you trick or treated, and then like when you kind of got slightly past the trick or treating age, there were the haunted houses to do. Though it should be noted that I believe we went trick or treating our senior year of high school.
Yeah. It's the best year
Anyway,
actually.
yeah, you weren't you guys like a ER team? Like you had a full gurney?
So the entire idea was that we weren't going to do it. But we were sitting around like probably like 2 days before Halloween, and my neighborhood would do like a haunted trail.
That's right.
And so we would like kind of drop dummies out of the trees, and we'd kill our friends behind the curtains and stuff like that, and or sheets, whatever.
Yeah.
And so we're kind of going through like all the neighborhood props, and we found like an old JFK mask, and we like built a stretcher out of this like material that they were using for a projector screen. And so we had this
Oh.
stretcher with PVC pipes and like this this sort of cloth. And we had this like JFK dude, and we stuffed him with newspapers, and we put this like kitchen container for food in like his shirt in this flannel that we had him wear. And we opened the buttons and we're like, oh, we could just run around and like people would put candy in here. And so my mom worked at a hospital and she grabbed us a couple pair of scrubs.
Yeah.
And yeah, we ended up as EMTs running around, your neighborhood.
Yeah.
Um, and we'd tell houses because they're expecting a bunch of 7-year-olds and stuff, and then these 17-year-olds would run up and be like, "You gotta save this guy! Just stuff a handful of candy in his heart." And they'd all contribute to this dummy's well-being, and it
Because it
worked
was
out.
hilarious.
Yeah, and so we got some exercise, and we all went home and got our 17-year-old sugar rush, and it was a good note to end Halloween on.
I do feel like it was the last somewhat socially acceptable time for us to do
Yeah,
trick
I
or treating. I
don't
was
think you
not
can do
in
that as an
the
adult.
Gurney crew, but I do remember I had this, and I mean, I have now gifted it to listener and regular Sean. I had this giant like Domo t-shirt, the character that's, actually a piece of poop. But I had that and I just like made a costume around being that character by having the big t-shirt. And then that was like pretty much it. It was just like we're gonna just like dress in all brown. We're gonna go
That's
like
right.
also listener Kyle face, like brown face.
Yeah.
And then we're just gonna be this character and we're gonna pop along with our friends, go get candy, go get burritos, and watch YouTube videos until 4 in the morning, like all 17-year-olds
Perfect
did.
Halloween. Yeah.
It was a classic Halloween for the ages. There are some things of our era that I'm like, we were like some wholesome 17-year-olds at times.
Not 16-year-olds. 6 of us dressed up in Jason masks and drove around the neighborhood in some kid's van, and we kidnapped our friends when we saw them trick or
Oh,
treating.
I remember. Oh, I got kidnapped.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was kind of gnarly.
I got really upset.
Yeah,
And I
it
was
was kind
like,
of
you
scary
guys will
Halloween.
buy me Jamba Juice now.
Yeah, yeah. That one was the.
Ah.
I'm glad we didn't
But
skew further that direction as we got older. Yeah.
no, I like made the mistake of like going for a run before trick or treating hours. So I wasn't even like out for Halloween. I was just out for a run.
Oh
I was
my god.
kidnapped in the van by my friends. And I was like, oh,
So you've had plenty
and
of
then
haunted
ended
house experience, a haunted
oh
neighborhood
yeah, haunted
experience.
activities. These are the reasons where it's like some people are like, why would you be scared? I was like, I don't know, because my friends like to do things like kidnap me on the street. And then also in college, I had two friends that had to do like, I mean, I lived in a theater dorm and they had to do like a zombie video. And then there's video of me online of these two people waking me up in zombie gear. And I'm just like, "Ugh," but I also think I was hungover, so I was a little bit less scared where I was just like putting the covers over my face, like,
Just
please
over it.
leave. Where I'm like, at first I react and then I'm like, go away. This is very loud. You're in full makeup. I am fully needing a Gatorade. You need to get out.
It's the right attitude to have when the zombies come.
That's true. It does feel like a natural reaction of like, really? This is what's happening now. Okay. They got it. Yeah.
After all the
They do
shit
this
we've
in
been through.
like the scary movies, but it would be funny if an actual horror movie, there's just someone who's so burnt out and beaten down. They're like, "Oh, you're here? Okay." Like, and then they're waiting for the reaction, like, "You know what? Concerned? Like, listen, no." So I ended up kind of doing like a tour day county because I really crossed around because I arrived in Santa Monica, got some fun Korean food at a place called Mom and Bop. They had some good sundubu, and other kind of bowls and tteokbokki, which is like spicy rice cakes and like lots of other stuff. And then did the haunted house, walked around the area. If you're into like, they had a lot of like, bespoke kind of like vintagey and woo woo and hipster shops. So one of my friends got a Mercury and Retrograde candle that's supposed to help you harness the energy of the time. So if that's something you're into, it's there. I definitely was like, this candle store smells amazing. I don't need the powers.
You're not trying to
But
harness the energy of the time?
part of me really wants to get into that stuff. Like I've not. I know like I don't know if this is something you've been asked, but eventually when you have enough friends that are into that, like you kind of got to track down your birth time and then like figure out your sun, your moon, and your rising signs. So I've done
I'm
that because
sorry.
then
We have multiple. We have like signs for
oh
all that
yeah,
stuff.
oh yeah, oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, let's bring this up. PT is really going in a fun direction this evening. We're honestly, this is kind of cool though, because we're in like, there's a full moon rising. Like we're getting into full Halloween type stuff, like knowing your signs. So, for instance, my sun is in Pisces. Go fishy fishy, and then my moon is a Taurus, and my rising is Cancer. Crap, people.
so they're the
So
same signs, but then they're
now they're
not your
different.
sign.
Yes, like your sun, they say, according to the CoStar app,
Right.
they say that which is how I know these things because I plugged it all in. I was like, tell me. That is your ego, your identity, and your role. And then your moon says it rules your emotion, moods, and feelings. And your ascendant is supposed to be the mask you present to people and your personal style and kind of like your first impression, which is interesting because it's like for me, it's the same sign as my mom. But they're all of mine are very water-based signs. What's interesting is like I knew less about my astrological signs growing up, but I knew more about my zodiac. So
Right.
we would be the same. We're roosters, but and since we're the same year, we're the same. So it's like I'm a water rooster.
We're a water rooster?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah, this
sick.
yeah. So like based on there's like an element that goes along with your zodiac and then the year determines which type you are. And yeah, they're kind of different. So water rooster is 1933 and 1993. So yeah, they're every 60 years.
So if your son's a fish, what did you learn about yourself?
Your signs of fish. The Pisces fish is like I mean, they have like traits for all the signs. Like I think, you know, it's it says according to this app, they have lots of different, takes on it, but they say like I am fundamentally dreamy, insightful, and in my own world. Kind of true. You exist on a chaotic plane of the divine that is not all material. Your rich imagination endows you with a strong intuition for hidden emotional currents. When you take offense, it is deeply sad but true. And you aren't necessarily interested in reconciliation.
Fantastic.
Oh, I sound like a great person. It's in your ninth house, meaning you feel the need to distinguish yourself from others through philosophy, faith, education, and politics. That I don't know
Sounds like a
necessarily, but
lot.
then like kind of. I'm like, some of these things are like totally, and then some of them are like less so. But yeah, so they'll tell you all your signs. I don't know. I follow like those Instagram accounts where they make memes on your signs, and some of them are pretty true, and then some of them you're like, this is not as much me. But yeah, wait, what's your sun? What's your sign?
How do I find out?
Oh, what's your birthday?
Oh, okay. So my birthday's in June, the beginning of
Okay,
June. So I am
okay.
Gemini, and I know
Oh yeah,
because everybody's like, "Oh yeah, you are Gemini," and then they turn around, and then I'm like, "All right, well, sweet. This is a great sign, huh?"
I get the same thing. It's apparently like one of those like you bastard.
Yeah.
Like you kind of get the like hello Newman. And you're like, excuse you. I think it's pretty great as it is me. Now I have a lot of friends who are Gemini as well. But yeah, it's like somebody was like, oh, did you know there's a lot of psychopaths with your sign? I'm like, I'm sure that's true from other signs as well. It's called nature and nurture, baby. Um,
Yeah, right.
it's like it's not all based on this. We're not all Harry Potters born into a prophecy. Some of these things are gonna be coincidental. But yeah, there's some truth to them. There's things that probably don't apply. Yeah, I think we get categorized into the ones of like, oh, you have some like chaotic traits,
Mhm.
which I'm like, So it be. But yeah, so I think there's pros and cons to all of the signs, and everyone just kind of embraces it or not. I do feel like when you meet other ones that are yours, they'll be like, "Yeah, we're cool." So
Yeah,
like
yeah, that does happen. That's okay. Okay, so there is some
there
camaraderie.
yeah, there's some competition between them, and then there's the like camaraderie. Or like, yeah. Oh, and sometimes it's true. Like I had a roommate in college and we're still in touch who we have the exact same birthday and we did have a lot in common. Like we didn't know each other that well and we'd have like the same favorite like scents. Like we would buy like body wash and be like, oh, ours are the same. And a lot of same like music tastes and like just there's a lot of things that align where we're like, is it the same birthdays thing? Is it the signs thing? It might be there might be a chunk in there. That's true.
Okay,
So
I'm just
yeah.
imagining you in like the dorm mirror, like you're my roommate, and no,
I know, right? But then it was, yeah, we had a joint birthday and we were like partying. We were like, yeah, like a lot of the stuff works out. So yeah, I think there's some good stuff to take in from it. And then some people around here do things like I had an old coworker who did like moon kind of like you could go places that do like, full moon meditations and stuff like that. It does feel like there's a phase of life where you start getting into like the universe. What is it?
do you regret not getting a candle?
Now that we talk about it some more, I'm feeling like in the next time I find myself drawn to one of these places, I'm like, you're
Uh-huh.
probably coming home with the candle.
Probably coming home with a little power candle. Okay.
You're like, you're going to get into it. You're going to find yourself just like going into your room one day and be like, now we have four candles. How'd that happen?
Yeah. How? Yeah.
Yeah. I am pretty minimalist with some decor stuff. So like I have like one like diffuser that does essential oils and like a few candles. And I'm kind of like, we wait until we burn these out and then we get another one. You know, some people like live amongst their families of candles, and I'm like, let's 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 do them candle at a time.
Possible ignorant question.
Sure.
Is your friend with the candle able to measure the amount of power she's harnessed with the candle?
Not ignorant question. I have no idea. I don't know how they work. I don't know if it's something where it just like makes you feel better
Okay.
or if it's
Okay.
like or if there's like, but also I feel like that probably is a thing. Same friend has definitely gotten me one of those like kits that you have like a rock and you have like a crystal and then you have like a what's it called like an incense and you're supposed to like do a thing with it. It's supposed to like kind of like cleanse your space. And I have to say that stuff kind of works. Um, I remember in all of my college apartments except for 1 year, and those roommates were a little bit not as cool. We would like sage the apartment to be like only good vibes. And obviously you would still have like roommate drama and stuff, but it was pretty good. And then like times we did not sage the apartment, you could kind of feel it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
That's
there's some tension in there. And be like, I'm not saying the saging of the apartment would make someone pay their electricity bill on time, but it might make me feel better about it.
of course. Yeah. Okay. 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 So it's not like certain people are becoming wizards while everybody else is concerned about who they're not supposed to date.
Nah, I kind of feel like it's just like zenning out. Like,
Okay.
I don't know if that's the right way of phrasing it, but like, just like helping you kind of like take the anxiety levels down. And some of it is I think to like, yeah, make sense of the world. And there is something true to like seasons and I feel like there is
Hmm.
something about that where it's like energies shift and people act differently. And I think that's what like a lot of this stuff is about. So, changing into fall and kind of feeling like people like starting to get into that zone, like ready for spooky stuff, but also kind of like, being like, ooh, we're about to hit that, you know, 10K into the holidays.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna start being like the downhill ski. Just all like how we get here.
I mean,
So
they start bombarding. I'm not against any of them. They just start bombarding us.
no, I love all of them, but then you do just realize that like you only have 2 or 3 weeks in between them, and you're like, oh wow, there's like a lot of stuff I still need to get done. This is such a like overproductive American mindset. I have a lot of stuff to get done before I'm supposed to take off like the only holidays I have during the
Yeah.
and it's really cutting into that.
Yeah, it's close. Well, until then, you can go to the House of Spirits.
I know, it ended up being a little bit of like a little bit of an ad.
Well, it runs
Well, depending on how you feel.
depending on that's but even on as a 3 out of 10.
Yeah.
As a 3 out of 10, you recommend it.
I mean, I would say, yeah, as someone who is a 3 out of 10 spooky person, aka there's a lot of people who would probably been super jazzed because they get energized off of being scared and not actually getting scared. And they probably get even more into it. And me doing about like, I'd say 2/3, maybe a little less than 2/3. Maybe we're trying to do maths, but maybe I did like 5/8 of the haunted house. Yeah, I did math right, I think. I did more than half, not too much more than half though. As someone who did that, there's also like if you weren't into like figuring out the mystery at all, it was kind of just like a cool scene. You're in like an old historic house and everyone's dressed up in like period wear. And then you get these like fun cocktails. And they also had things like a Ouija board where there's like a microphone that you could talk into and someone behind there would do it. And I had fun asks that I didn't do because at first I was like, should I just go like, what are the last 4 digits of my social security?
Yeah.
They would just be like,
something you want the
"Please
demons
don't make
knowing.
us do this." Yeah. So there was cool things like that. Like there was other interactive parts. They actually also had an outside area where people one of my friends also does like a bit of like acrobat, like aerial silks and other things like that. And there were people who were doing like that and then pouring drinks. So they would go like upside down and then pour you like a pre-mixed drink and then give it to you.
What? That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of cool things. It was you kind of had that like Alice in Wonderland, like Mad Hatter's vibe of like, there's like different kind of like weird and whimsical areas. And then it could also get very scary. Like if you want it to be like demons, dungeons, and blood, like it can be that. And then it could also just be like kind of a madhouse and kind of like Rocky Horror Picture Show. There's even somebody who was like dressed up like a nurse that kind of looked like the maid woman who I'm spacing on, but like yeah, it kind of had like if it was more comedic, it would fall into the Rocky Horror Picture Show vibe, but it was actually scary, so it did not. And that's more my speed. I'm like I would be more in the like sexy funny Halloween, actual scary Halloween. I have to dip my toe and see how far it can go. And then there is usually I usually pop a U-turn at some point. And what was interesting, I was there with my other friend who spooky tolerance is even a little bit lower than mine. And we were both like, we've known our friend from a long time. We used to live together. Did we ever tell her we were spooky averse? Like we love Halloween stuff, so it's probably confusing. But like, did we tell her we actually get scared at these things? Or has it never come up? We were like, I feel like it's public knowledge. But I guess that's a question for you. Did you know I got scared at stuff?
Yeah, I'm not surprised if that's a question for me.
Yeah, that's a question for you.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
I feel like it is fairly on brand. So I was like, I don't know. But I guess like you've known me quite a long time of like knowing that people used to try to scare me all the time in general.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you know, I was a low hanging fruit for getting spooked, scared. And I'd be a good like A/B test, as they would say, for being like, we're gonna do this prank that'll like, shock someone. We'll start here, and then we'll work on someone who's harder to scare after that. So yeah, I do feel like that. It also, like, when that happens, you have more reasons to be scared in these situations because you're like, I know I'm getting picked. There's
Right.
times when you're not going to be picked for dodgeball, and this is the one when you're like, no, I'm first pick. It's not the best time. So yeah, but yeah, did you do like Scream Zone and all those other kind of Halloween haunted house-ish, or like haunted trails in Balboa, or like the haunted hotel? The haunted hotel sounds actually haunted, so I'm not into that one.
I did. What's Rob Zombie's called that happens in Pomona at the LA County Fairgrounds? I did that one in 2013. I was really there for one of the like concerts that they put on in the next
Oh,
room
they
over, but
did
we did the
concerts?
yeah, but
Oh,
we did the haunted house as well, and it was kind of a ton of fun.
oh, he's called Rob Zombie's Great American Nightmare. I'm looking up this
Yeah, that's the one.
website that is fully from 2013, which sounds like near when you went.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says it's like this bone-chilling experience will combine the most advanced haunted house attractions with a not-to-be-missed music festival. See, I'm into that when there's like a little bit of both. I'm into that. I want people to just like cover zombie and like Monster Mash. Oh, you totally went to this because Goldfinger's there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it was RBF's trombonist's
Oh
last
yeah.
show with the band before he started his brewery. So we were there
Oh
to
my
see him all.
gosh. Yeah, RBF is there too. Oh,
Yeah,
The Used was there. Oh, there was like emo bands
yeah. It was
too.
all like yeah. It was a cool time.
Ah, yeah, that would have been up my alley. All right. Well, if that comes back, I will go to that. That
Sweet.
that's like a nice twofer. Because that's also good because it gives like the people who want to dress up costume, but maybe they're weak of Halloween spirit. They can do the concert side and maybe an aperitif of the haunted house. But let everyone else do the main course and then they dip out to go to the concerts. But yeah, I'm into that combo. I think I've done Not Scary Farm. I feel
Oh,
like I have. I can't recall,
I
but I
don't
feel like I have. I have not done the Horror Nights at Universal.
getting commercials for that right now on Hulu. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember this coming up a lot and not going to it because I was like, I'm always worried about the ones where it's like, can these people like touch me? Oh, yeah. One of the things I forgot to mention at the haunted house, one of the people asked for like a little snippet of hair to put in like they had these like cuticle scissors and they were like trimming, they'd be like cut a little thing of your hair to put in this Russian doll. They asked me and I was like, "Oh no, man. I got a haircut recently. I don't do that. It's
Oh.
too fresh. I can't." But my friend did it because she's like, I need to get a haircut soon. I'll just give her a little dead end.
I don't know.
But
Like I'm not really like too conspiratorial or anything, but like when you were describing all the weird stuff going on at the beginning, I was like, well, what if they're actual demons, and what if they just set up in LA, and because it's the closest place to hell, and now that they're collecting hair, I'm like, well, what if in 20 years this really comes back to bite your friend, or all of us when like her
right?
demon
I
incarnate decides to impersonate her for a fun weekend, and takes all of her candle power.
exactly. What if the Hellmouth is on the 405?
Yeah, it will.
We don't know. We don't know. You don't know until you know.
Till you know.
Uh,
Someday
but
we'll
yeah, I
know.
know you're right. Doesn't that those are the parts where you're like,
What you need that for?
mm.
Where's all that go? Yeah.
Yeah, because the story that person gave is there was some like monster where this little girl was like, getting bald patchy because she had to feed it hair, and she's like, keep the girl alive and give a little bit of your hair. And I was like, I've seen too many movies. You will get none of my.
Yeah, it's
Sorry,
gonna be a
man.
nightmare someday.
That's a no go.
Well, maybe if you go back to the House of Spirits in a couple years, you'll see whatever your hair decided to nourish into.
I know. What if, well, the funny question my other friend said when she gave him the hair is like, what if they're doing like cloning? They're just like taking people's hair for other things. She's like, if that's the case, wait and see.
Yeah. Yeah. That
Already done. The damage is done.
I'm really interested in where this plot thread goes, and if it and if it pays off sometime in the future.
I know. It definitely, as we talk it out further, it's like the basis of all the things in like Buffy and Angel are always these things that people are like, oh no, that's just like a little thing.
Yeah.
And it's like a real thing. So it's like, it really depends on your superstitiousness. That's the thing. I am fairly superstitious as well. So I feel like some of these things I'm like, now I got a healthy fear. I got a healthy fear of ghosts. Not that I necessarily, because some people are like, I don't believe in any of that, so it's not that scary. It's like, it's not believing, but sometimes it's good to have a healthy fear of what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
That, and yeah, I don't know, because yeah, like when you watch like The Grudge or like movies like that where they're like, we're gonna go in the house even though it says don't go in the house. I'm like, rules are there for a reason. Why are you going in that house? You could have just lived a beautiful life
Is that what you
not doing
shout at
that.
them from the comfort of
I,
your couch? Could have had a
exactly.
beautiful life. Could have really gone places. I was rooting for you.
I was counting on you.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, because most of the time, like, I mean, some of the times people are stuck in like a bad situation, but like one of the ones I was watching, I remember it's just like, high school. It's all a lot of times it's like high school kids being like, yeah, let's mess around and go to this. And I'm just like, nah, man. Like there's for a while like an abandoned house near where I grew up, and nobody messed with that. They were like, nah, bad vibes, man.
Oh, we all went to the one near my house. We called it Love Shack, and everybody would drop their
What?
furniture off and like throw bottles and yeah. Some kid wrote like a book that's like on Amazon, published about it now, and yeah, like
Wait,
it's
what?
yeah,
Your abandoned house sounds way cooler. Mine always looked super murdery. And I was just like,
yeah,
no,
yeah, it did.
thank you.
I've seen it. It did look way more murdery than Love Shack did. Yeah,
And it was like all the windows are boarded up. You're like, nah, man, they do that to keep the demon inside of
yeah.
it. So I don't know. Yeah, I got a healthy fear of spooky stuff, I must say. But I will say, I do like testing it. Like I hadn't been to a haunted house in years. I'd never gone to a professional one. So I pushed myself past a boundary and was like, we did some of it. It was right. And then definitely a part of like, oh no. Especially the pitch black section, because my friend did it and she's like, yeah, you're like all in the dark and you can like run into stuff. I was like, listen, I would just like tripped over this entire section
It's pretty
while
hardcore. Yeah.
screaming, which probably would have been ideal for the people working there. They're like, this person's a hot mess. They're this is great. We're gonna feed off of this. But for me, it would have been traumatizing. So it's best I sat it out. But yeah, and then later we went from around there, bopped around, yeah, that old Highland Park area, went to a brewery and then got ramen later in Koreatown and then went to I don't know if you've been to Honey Me and got the honey ice cream. Like it's milk ice cream. I don't know if you've had milk soft cream,
I
but
don't
it's
think I
like
have.
there's like a thing. They have it in Japan. I think they also have it other places, but it's like they call it soft cream because it's like soft serve, but it's still ice cream. Like it's not yogurt kind of thing, and it's not like soft serve like Costco. It's like different. Still like very creamy, kind of like in between those two things. And so this one's milk flavored, which really just means it's kind of like a sweet cream. It's not like vanilla. And then at this place, you can get either swirled with honey, or with honeycombs, or chocolate and honey. It's quite simple. It's quite delicious. I highly recommend.
What's the name of this place that I have locally at my disposal that I should be trying this honey cream stuff at?
Honey Me.
Honey Me. All right.
Oh, and whilst we did not do toast and roast for this episode, and I know we're probably going to wrap up soon, I do have a fun anecdotal story.
All right. What do you got?
So, side note, I've not been watching the talk show circuit, so I was unaware of something that was making the rounds. And I was doing research for work for a university we work with. I won't name them. And I saw on the banner image a stock photo with what looked like the recent star of Shang-Chi and previously on Kim's Convenience, Simu Liu. And I was comparing pictures from Google search and I was like, this really should be him, but logically it doesn't make sense. And then apparently he went on Jimmy Fallon. He's gone on all these shows about how he used to be a stock image model. And randomly, one of my coworkers was like, oh, you guys got to watch this bit. I think it's really funny. And I watched it and I was like, oh no, I looked at that photo 10 minutes ago. And I looked at it. It's from the same photo shoot because there's like this curly haired, like brunette guy next to him and then like some other girl. And they're all in the same like shirts. And I was like comparing them and I was like, nope, this is from the same photo shoot. He's still a like banner image for graduate programs for like a small school. And I was like, it's odd though, because he did say that when you do model for stock images, you're paid a flat fee. And he said he was paid like $100 for just one day of modeling, which sounds pretty low. And that they own the rights of the images. So they can use them for whatever for as long as possible. And that's why like it's not too expensive to buy stock images. But it is weird to be like, you have like a full-blown celebrity. Like, are you ever gonna like switch it? Because now it's like
there's no way.
I know. Because it's weird because I'm like, I don't know if they just haven't refreshed like because you know, a lot of times.
Did you tell them?
No, I haven't. Like it's
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm close. But like it's one where you're like, wow. Like it's kind of cool. On one hand, I'm like, I mean, this is like good advertisement. Maybe you're keeping it for a reason because people will be like, oh my gosh, he's on that page. I remember that because listen, here I am telling the story. Might not be bad marketing. But then it's also a little bit like eventually I don't know. It's weird because like technically they can use the pictures as long as you want, but it starts to at a certain point go like it's gonna be a little weird soon to see him like on random websites, be like somebody's Squarespace page.
Yeah.
Just like a picture of him. And I'm like, you know, he's a really handsome guy. So I'm like, I get why you're a model in a previous iteration, but it was also quite funny because I really talked myself out of him being there because I'm like, there's just no way. Like, it's really similar, but like, it must just be one of those things where someone looks really similar to another person. It happens all the time where you think it's one celebrity and that's another person. It's probably that, like something like that. And then I was like, no, it's really confirmed.
Oh.
But yeah, finding celebrities in stock images. This is a fun thing that can happen in your day to day and spice up what was a day of research at work.
And if you want to go to this haunted house that you went to, the House of Spirits, it looks like it's playing at the York Manor this year in Highland Park, Los Angeles, California. And it's a new location from last year, but it seems like it is an annual thing. Just viewer discretion advised. Apparently there is nudity. This show could not have been made without the following amazing people. We're talking about artwork was done by Fen. Find her at FenLatte on Instagram. Our theme song was done by Jay Wright. Find him at jwrightmusic.com. Website with thanks to Coco. Production managers BMac. And stay tuned for more spooky content coming this month. More spooky episodes. Tracy, glad you got some in real life, an IRL kind of primetime spook.
Yes. Gotta get our primetime horror times.
Yeah, that's all I really got for this one. I don't know if I have any. I'm catching up to spooky season. That's all I can do.
might have a note coming in. It's like, are we about to get 3 dots of text messages from some of our listeners?
No, Fen, I'm gonna go ahead and read this comment on air. Fen was a fan. It was fun, and she liked listening to the different shenanigans. Definitely fit the spooky October theme.